All right, so we're recording. Thanks everybody for joining today. The first talk of the new year is going to be from Kevin Thompson from the NSF, and he's going to be talking about the upcoming campus cyber infrastructure solicitation. So I'll turn it over to you, Kevin.
Thanks, Jason. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, great. Well, Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks, Jason, for giving me an opportunity to talk about CC Star. I've got some slides here that are cut up in kind of three parts, more or less. I think the first section is to give a little bit of an introduction to NSF and my part of NSF, the Office of Advanced Cyber Infrastructure. And then I'll go into a little bit of background on our networking programs and CC Star. And then I'll finish with some material on the open solicitation right now. So for those of you who haven't read the mission statement for NSF, there it is in a nutshell. It's actually a little more wide-ranging than what you might think with those words. The picture there is of our new headquarters. We moved to South Alexandria from Arlington, Virginia, in the fall, late summer, early fall of last year. And you see the metro rail going by the kind of the front door there of NSF. And in fact, that's operating today. My window is pointed out towards that front area. And if you might hear the metro running in the background in the next hour, I wouldn't be surprised. Well, NSF tends to be a pretty busy place year in and year out. I like this slide. I dug this up out of kind of a slide deck that my boss likes to give. And there are some interesting numbers in here. A couple of things I just point out about NSF. We do operate under the peer review process, as many of you know well, since you've served as reviewers. Thank you for that. These numbers are, let's see, I think from the budget number there is FY15 at $7.3 billion. That's gone up, I think, very slightly since then. That was a request number anyway. These other numbers appear to be from actuals from fiscal year 2013, but they're still in the relative ballpark of what we've got in terms of number of proposals that come in per year and how many we award. And, just look at that ratio. You can see that it's hard to get an award from NSF. In the overall, you might have about a 20% chance or so. Here's a look at kind of the diversity of what we fund. We're across all the domain sciences and engineering, and we have a comparison there against some of the other scientific research funding agencies. HHS, I think, is pretty dominated by the National Institutes of Health, and that green segment there for them is, of course, life sciences. But it gives you kind of a view of where the R&D expenditures go across the federal agencies and where NSF fits. In some of the domains, we are the primary funding source. There are some domains where we are pretty much 100% of the federally funding source for research. Here is a view of the organization. I've always viewed us as being pretty flat overall as organizations go. At the top is our director, Franz Cordova. And then you see in this picture, if you can see it, maybe the names and the titles aren't so visible, but where that circle is, that top row, those are the science and engineering directorates. And the one circled there is the Computer and Information Science and Engineering Directorate, which is where our part of NSF sits under. Jim Carosi's picture is there. He's the assistant director. He's the head of SISE. And then here's a quick org chart of our division. which is the Office of Advanced Cyberinfrastructure. And we're one of the smaller divisions people-wise in size. And there's a good look at our staff. Sadly, we said goodbye to Anita Nikolic today. Today was her last day. She was an IPA, or a rotator, and rotators have kind of a maximum lifetime at NSF of 4 years, and we maxed her out here. We hated to see her go, so that's about the only update to that slide I would give. Bill Miller came on board as our science advisor, I think, a couple of years ago, and you see the other names there. So we are hoping to, if not replace Anita, find someone to fill that role in the networking and cybersecurity cluster to join me in that cluster. Down at the bottom, there's a line there that briefly describes our role in NSF, where we support and coordinate the exploration, development, and provisioning of CI resources, tools, and services that are essential to the advancement of science and engineering. And the question of what do we mean by cyber infrastructure can be represented in how we're organized here in terms of the elements and the clusters in OAC: computing, data, software, networking and cybersecurity, and learning and workforce development. Here is a snapshot of the fiscal year 18 solicitations and programs in OAC. This is a slide that was given at SC17 in November. I do have one update on this one. And the update is on that last row on training-based workforce development for advanced CI. I'm pretty sure that Sushil, between then and now, came out with cyber training solicitation, which I think is what's represented there in that bottom row. But we do have other solicitations very much in progress that should appear soon. For networking programs at NSF, in terms of network infrastructure programs, this is separate from the network research programs in our sister division of CNS, Computer and Network Systems. Here in OAC, we view networking as a fundamental layer and underpinning of cyber infrastructure. That's been the case really since the inception of a separate entity for cyber infrastructure at NSF. And that takes two forms, takes two programs. CC Star, which is really the domestic program that I'll talk about here the rest of my time with you, which is really a campus networking upgrade program at its core. Certainly there have been other parts to this program over the years, but that's really why it was formed. And the other one that I won't be talking about here, but is very much active and actually is the longest running network infrastructure program at NSF. It dates back something like 25 years. And that's the International R&E Network Connections Program, or IRNC. And perhaps it's not as well known across campuses as CC Star as a program, but that IRNC program invests in 100 gigabit per second links connecting the U.S. To other regions of the world. It's a big part of a global coordinated R&E networking fabric. You can see a good chunk of that fabric in that lower left-hand slide, that beautiful rendition from the folks from Pacific Wave. That program also supports next generation exchange point R&D and some targeted awards in network performance monitoring and training. So the Campus Cyber Infrastructure Program, which has gone by different names since it started in 2012. I think we've settled on simply CC Star for the name of it. This is word for word, I think, the synopsis of the program and the current solicitation, investing in coordinated campus-level networking improvements, innovation, integration, and engineering for science applications and distributed research projects. Science-driven requirements are the primary motivation for any proposed activity. I may repeat that phrase a couple of times here moving forward. This science DMZ concept is very central to most of the awards in what is currently Area 1, has been Area 1 of the solicitation since 2012, really, representing, I think, not just a re-architecting of the campus border, but an effort to prioritize scientific data flows in and out of a campus. I think Jason's webinar series has focused on this across more than one talk through 2017. I think a number of you calling in have probably implemented different interpretations of this concept, and it's very much central to CC Star. It's not a required element of a proposal, but it turns out that probably the majority of the awards in Area 1 over the last 5 to 6 years have included some interpretation of the science DMZ. There are program-wide criteria for CC Star activities. These have remained more or less constant. A few words have been perhaps changed and modified over the solicitations, but the theme still, and it starts with science drivers. It very much includes evidence of partnerships among the campus CI experts and IT leadership and the scientists, researchers, students, and users that are meant to benefit from the proposed networking upgrades. And that partnership can take different forms in the proposal. The proposers have different options on how they can demonstrate that. Another the kind of unique element to this program is the requirement for a cyber infrastructure plan. It remains up to 5 pages. You can put it in as a supplementary document. In fact, if you don't include it, we'll return your proposal without review. And the solicitation year over year goes into some details to what we'd expect to see in a cyber infrastructure plan. And you see there, some different questions. And I think how I'd prefer to describe it here and just, leave the text to you to read in the solicitation as well is that I think what NSF is after here with this required CI plan is we want the campus to think strategically in terms of mapping these proposed networking upgrades, or there have been other areas in the solicitation, but this holds equally true of the other areas in past solicitations, and to consider what that means in the context of an overall strategy for the campus in terms of how cyber infrastructure is going to be developed, provisioned, and maintained to advance scientific research and education across the institution. And so we're looking for that larger context there. And there are some specifics that we do ask to be addressed in there. We don't require IPv6 to be front and center, but we, at the same time, don't want a campus to simply ignore its existence or its potential role in the future. So, it should be talked about somehow in the CI plan. The wording has changed this year. It's gotten a little stronger with what we'd asked for the campus to consider in terms of in common federation and participation in the RNS category. And I think Jason sent out within the last day or so a reminder of a webinar that the Internet 2 folks are putting on in the near future. If you have specific interest in that part of federated identity, and frankly, if you're thinking of proposing into CC Star by the end of this month, I would suggest you consider joining into that webinar from the Internet 2 folks. So enough about the CI plan. I'll leave the rest of that to your reading and the solicitation. Other criteria for CC Star proposals where relevant, addressing appropriate cybersecurity issues. We feel in our part of NSF that the solicitation across all the areas, they represent all sorts of opportunities for student engagement, undergrad, grad student, etc. And would like proposals to think about that. Here are some summary numbers of CC Star between 2012 and 2017. I counted up about 225. I don't think I'm including the entirety of the award set, but it's in that ballpark. Probably goes over 240 if you include anything funded under the program element. There's been quite a lot invested in this program over that time period. That's a big chunk of money there, over $100 million over 6 years. All but, I think, 4 states have institutions that have received awards to date in the program. And, I broke up the award categories, what we continue to call Area 1, which could be crassly termed campus networking upgrades. That's, really about half of the overall award set. The networking integration and innovation area makes up a good number as well. That's been there from the beginning. The solicitation no longer supports an area, or certainly doesn't this year, at least, on cyber team or CI engineer. That has been present the last 3 years in one form or another. We managed to make 22 of those 25, I think, were CI engineer awards in 2014, 2015, 2016. Network design, which is code for small under-resourced institutions. We've made about 22 awards there. And there have been other categories, and the previous solicitation actually had a bunch of areas that stretched into storage and even computing. But the data area, which is not present in this current solicitation, but was there for a couple of previous solicitations, made very large awards. A small number of them, but very large ones. You total all of those other categories up, it's about 25. And here's my current map. I apologize if I missed a few spots. I might have, but that gives you a pretty good idea of, I think, where the awards have gone geographically. Multiple awards are very well hidden there. Some institutions have received multiple awards across multiple areas over the last 6 years. So let's now talk about the current solicitation. And it looks like I'm good on time here, so we should have time for Q&A if you want to ask questions here at the end. But I'll finish up here with some material that is really a recapitulation of what you will read text-wise. If you bring up the solicitation, you can Google NSF 18-508. You can bring it up. It's there. Proposals are due at the end of this month. And the solicitation shows anticipated funding of between 10 and 17 million dollars, pending funding availability. We have to be cautious in all of this, especially under continuing resolution. I'm kind of used to being under CRs here the last couple of years, so I think this is business as usual, but it is worth pointing out pending funding availability in fiscal year 18. And we have 4 areas this year. So it's in terms of the number of areas, we're trimmed down from the previous year. I think we might have had as many as 7 the previous year. This is really now kind of refocused in networking for FY18. The area 1, the first 2 areas are really the core areas. Area 1 remains up to $500,000 total for up to 2 years. I've got a material on each of these. Area 2, which is small institutions, that number has been raised, and I'll get to the reason for that. You can go up to $750,000 on a request for up to 2 years. It's area 1 and 3 that are really the core areas of the program since 2012. Area 3 is a network integration, applied innovation. Those remain at up to $1 million for up to 2 years. And we have a new area, a special new area for fiscal year 18 on network performance engineering and outreach, and there'll be 1 award expected there, supported at up to $3.5 million for over 4 years. So let's go across the areas. CC Star Area 1 is called Data-Driven Networking Infrastructure for the Campus and Researcher. Lift off a couple letters there. We expect conservatively to make 5 to 10 awards in Area 1 under the solicitation. The wording has remained largely unchanged in this area. I mean, there's a little bit of wordsmithing year over year, but this reads very much like it did, I think, back in 2012, 2013. This area supports network infrastructure improvements at the campus level. Those can include network upgrades within a campus to support a wide range of science data flows. It can have centrally to do with re-architecting a campus network along the lines of the science DMZ, and the solicitation gives actually multiple references to ESNet's Faster Data website that has a ton of info on science DMZ. It can include a network connection upgrade for the campus to connect to the nearest R&E aggregation point. And we often see proposals that include 2 or 3 of all 3 of those elements. And again, this reads largely as it has in the past. We do like to tinker with all parts of the solicitation year over year, and there are some words added now on being open to wireless-based solutions, if that makes sense. There is continued emphasis in the solicitation on presenting end-to-end scenarios for scientific data movement in making your case for asking for NSF funds to do a campus networking upgrade. There's a paragraph in there on including goals and milestones, and a strong suggestion on thinking about defining your success metrics. There are words in the solicitation on repeating what was said earlier in the program-wide criteria on evidence of a strong partnership on campus among the campus IT leadership and the scientific community. There are a few words there in the solicitation on budget restrictions, and I don't have it in front of me, but I think that has to do with some wording on what you can and can't ask for in terms of staff time Wording is in there on expecting to see an institution commitment, some discussion of what they're going to do with this upgraded infrastructure beyond the 2-year period. There's some additional guidance this year related to, I think, security aspects of the Science DMZ that's working off of some new language that ESNet has developed in their online discussion of Science DMZ principles. There's a wording in there that talks to a preference towards IPv6 solutions, though not a requirement. Personar has been in there from the beginning. And for the last couple of years, we've added an eligibility element in this area of the solicitation, where we unfortunately are having to discourage previous awardees in this area, in this specific area, from coming back in on this area this year. Moving on to Area 2, where we expect also to make 5 to 10 awards, roughly, is the network design and implementation for small institutions. This has remained an area in the solicitation over the last several years as well. We carved this out after the first 2 or 3 years of CC Star, where we realized that we were not effectively reaching some of the under-resourced institutions, and that perhaps by opening up an area targeted for under-resourced institutions, we could be more effective in broadening participation. Think under-resourced. I often get the question, what does NSF define as a small institution? And, to answer my own question there, I would say it's self-declarative, but the important element here is that you're an institution with some really fundamental challenges to address. And that makes you under-resourced. And that under-resource characteristic likely includes the fact that you could be more effective in partnering with a leadership entity who can work with you to work through the technical solution. As a result, this area does not require a technical solution. I would point out that no matter what size of an institution you are, you're eligible to go after Area 1. You're not excluded from putting a proposal into Area 1. I think, for institutions that are looking to work with a leadership entity and help develop that technical solution, and where they need the time, where they can't put that in a proposal in a 90-day window, and they want the first year to kind of work through that with some experienced partners. This is a good area for you to look at. So a leadership entity is actually required in this area. Otherwise, a lot of the same guidance in Area 1. You can read through the text. I think the thematics repeat really in Area 2. In Area 2, proposals will be evaluated mainly on the strength of the science use cases presented, including research and education and their quantification. Again, keep in mind, we're not expecting to see the complete technical solution laid out in proposals into Area 2. If you're in that space and you've got that, Area 1 is perhaps something to look at. Proposals will also be evaluated on the strength of institutional partnerships, as they're expected to play a central role in developing and implementing the eventual network upgrades. So this is a big change for this year in this area. This area now allows for proposals, at least this year it allows for proposals that are capturing the needs of multiple such institutions. You're still welcome to put a proposal in with a leadership entity as a single institution. That's fine. But we do encourage the community to think about expanded impact across more than a single institution, And that is really the reason for the higher level of potential funding for a given award is that is really commensurate. The maximum allowed award size is commensurate with that multi-institution opportunity. And NSF, thinks that there might be some opportunity there to think in a multi-institutional setting and to think along the lines of maybe some shared infrastructure to support scientific data flows. Area 3 is the network integration and applied integration area. These are up to $1 million, and 2 to 5 awards are expected. We have a great partnership internally at NSF with our, I'll call them our kind of sister or brother division, Computer and Network Systems. That's home to our network research programs. It's also home to the flagship cybersecurity program that's really NSF-wide. It's a great division. It's a research division. And they supply year over year the majority of the funding to awards in this category. And so not surprisingly, this area addresses integration of existing and new technologies and applied innovation. The goal is to leverage research results, prototypes, emerging innovations, to use them to enable specified researchers in a networking context. Really the emphasis is on something new and innovative here. Something that might be looking at a capability that is being deployed and explored for the first time. And to do so in an operational environment where we would expect a working prototype to come out of this. There's a nice list that each year CNS revisits on an example activity area list. I don't have that list on these slides. It's for you to read. And it's not an exhaustive list. It's not a complete list. It's just merely a set of example activity areas to think about. And this is one of the 2 core areas of the program from day one. And it's if it has changed year over year, I think there have been minor changes. You have to include a project description, a project plan. You actually see those words across more than this area. And see the solicitation for further guidance. If you have a specific interest in proposing into this area, you'll want to write down that email address right now or type it in to your desktop because inquiries that come to me on this area, I direct to Jack Brassel, who is my colleague, program officer inside CNS. And he's more than happy to talk to you if you have any questions about a proposal idea into Area 3.
So Kevin, before you advance, there was a question on Area 2 that I think we should address right now. This is from Scott Valcourt. If an Area 2 proposal is submitted with a group of small institutions partnering with a leadership entity, is it better for one of the small institutions to submit as the lead PI, or should the leadership entity serve as the project PI?
Hi, Scott. That's a good question. I tend to fall back on what's in the solicitation. I don't think that I put anything in there specific to those 2 alternatives. So I would say that I don't think the question is one better than the other. I think both are allowed. And whenever I get a question on who should be PI or lead, my simple answer, which may not always be helpful, is do what's in the best interest of making the strongest proposal possible, right? So I think you've got I'm looking at the solicitation on a separate screen here. Here's what I would say. Both are allowed, and here's why. Universities and colleges are eligible to submit proposals in this area. Nonprofit organizations are also eligible to submit proposals in this area. So the door is open for either. Where were we? Was I done with area 3, Jason?
Yeah, you just finished talking about Jack Brazil.
Okay, great. Okay, area 4. This is the new area, network performance, engineering and outreach. And what we're looking to do here is fund the establishment of a national resource of expertise, best practices, training, practical experience data, and applied R&D with the goal of what could be an order of magnitude level of improvement in data transfer performance in these distributed science environments based on more disciplined methodology applied with network performance analysis. This is a bulleted list appearing in the solicitation. I've cut out some of the wording for the full wording. You just refer to the solicitation. But these are the elements that NSF would like to see in this NPEO award activity. We view it as serving as a centralized point of expertise, advice, and engagement for the community, capable of selectively investigating and engineering for improved end-to-end networking performance. We view it as a vessel for central dissemination of current practices across the NSF community, for being capable of investigating, evaluating, and testing data movement systems and tools, transport protocols, integrated platforms, etc., for providing online and in-person training and education on network performance analysis and troubleshooting, for engaging with the CI engineer award and cyber team award activities and other related activities in that space, as well as the ACI ref space. If appropriate, perhaps even re-engineering data transfer protocols and tools, for defining a role for NPEO and improving the community's effectiveness in leveraging Personar, for defining a role for itself and improving the effectiveness in leveraging passive measurement capabilities more broadly, and for adoption and use of open source tools, for analyzing network performance and data transfer metrics and identifying potential bottlenecks. This entity would be expected to collaborate closely with related activities and groups in the R&E community to demonstrate how they will specifically collaborate with operational entities to assist in optimizing scientific data transfers. There are words in the solicitation. These are actually words right out of the solicitation that the proposal should address team fitness in the context of practical engineering experience in solving community network performance issues. The eligibility here as well, it can include not just universities and colleges, but nonprofits. And see the solicitation for further guidance. This is obviously a challenging area to apply into. And to state again, we expect to make one award in this area in FY18. So that's all I've got. I've got, Jason, by my time, I guess a little under 20 minutes left for Q&A. And, you know, just as a reminder, while the solicitation does list Anita, that email probably won't work for you starting today. So, you know, you're stuck with Jack and me for the remainder of this solicitation cycle. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Kevin. And I've already had a couple people ask me privately. The slides are going to be available in the usual location. I'll make sure I send out the email about that. So while we wait for a couple of questions to come in, I guess I have a couple. I've been waiting for the solicitation to sort of acknowledge a little bit more about cloud computing and cloud resources as being sort of a central pillar of this for a while, and I don't think that you've really taken the bait on that yet. So I'm just curious what if you think that that'll ever really be a focus area for people to be looking at, or if you think that it's good to sort of be left unstated.
Well, are you asking in the context of networking, or are you talking about cloud computing and cloud services as a potential area in the solicitation?
Dealer's choice, either way.
That's good input. I'll withhold comment on ideas that we might have inside of NSF that we do take in from the community and that may or may not make it into solicitations year over year. Let me answer it. I like answering in terms of the current opportunity, though, Jason. And so, what I would say is, there have been words in the solicitation now for a few years, really trying to drive home, wanting to see in proposals, these quantified, known, end-to-end scientific data movement scenarios, right? And so to map that into your question, if one end of those data movement scenarios involves a commercial cloud service, that's fine, and to me, maybe that even leads the way towards exploring, some ideas that might even be appropriate into area number 3. But there's it's certainly not excluded anywhere in the solicitation from a networking context in terms of relevant end-to-end paths. And I'll take that question as a form of input into possible ideas if we have an opportunity to re-expand the program in the future beyond networking areas again.
Okay, thank you. So we have 2 questions that have come in. I'll do them in the order that I see them. So the first is from Jorge. We are looking to expand training education programs to include high bandwidth, high delay networks, hands-on training on buffering, congestion control, ACLs, etc. for community college associate degrees, R1, and 4-year institution bachelor degrees training workshops. Is NPEO applicable to this? It's less than 400,000.
Happy New Year, Jorge. Yeah, I think that is certainly that activity would definitely fall within the NPEO award activities. I guess you're asking how that would shape up as kind of an atomic function or set of activities on its own, and I imagine it just on its own, if it wasn't addressing some of the other criteria in that area, it may not do well competitively. So that might be something that Jorge, maybe you and I take offline on a separate discussion. But I would urge you to maybe think beyond that if you have an interest in putting a proposal into Area 4.
Okay. Second question from Doug at South Dakota. Are there any external assessment requirements from a third party or other external entity for the CC STAR program?
Can you repeat that?
Are there any external assessment requirements, e.g. from a third party or other external entity for the CC STAR program?
External assessment requirements. Don't think I put any such requirements in the solicitation.
Okay. Doug, if you need clarification, just type into the chat window. Third one, were there areas in the CCNIE 2012 solicitation? It isn't clear to me whether there were and whether an awardee from the 2012 solicitation is eligible for Area 1.
I can't remember if that far back. That I'd have to Google in real time. CCNIE 2012. Let's see what we wrote back then. This is 12-541. Let's see. Data-driven networking infrastructure for the campus and researcher. I mean, it wasn't explicitly called Area 1, but there it is. I'm looking at it online, 12-541. Text sure looks familiar to me. Looks pretty close to what Area 1 is today. Any awardee from that area, from 12-541, should not bother with putting a proposal into Area 1 this year.
Okay. We have another one here. What do you do when your proposal spans 2 areas?
You talk to the program officers to get some guidance.
Okay. Let's see, another. Oh boy, they're coming in fast now. Not clear to me, but is CC Star interested in projects based on the implementation of Internet of Moving Things to big data? If yes, which area?
The Internet of Moving Things to big data.
Correct.
Whoever is asking that question, feel free to email me. I'm happy to discuss your idea with you offline. And I should be available to you and anybody else between now and the 30th.
Okay. Jennifer from Kimber, for multi-institution proposals to Area 2, are CI plans required for each participant? And if so, include in the supplemental documents or just the PI submitting? Any other advice on best way to manage CI plans for multi-institutional submissions?
Hi, Jennifer. I had this question over the holidays, and it took me forever to find the text in the solicitation, but there is guidance in the solicitation on this one. I'm looking over Area 2 right now. Give me a moment. I'm going to try to find this. Maybe it was above in the program-wide criteria. Let me look there. Proposals addressing a multi-institution or regional activity and approach to coordinated and integrated CI may submit a campus CI plan representing the multi-institution group or region. Didn't say must. It's an option for you. I would say, that would be the alternative there to a campus CI plan for a single institution or the lead institution. And Jennifer, if you need to talk about it more, you know where to find me. That language, by the way, Jennifer, is hidden in the program-wide criteria.
Okay. Next question from Brett. Do you think the creation of an independent consulting team that would help institutions administer awards be a viable proposal for this program? A group that could help smaller institutions or anyone with a skill or knowledge gap, for example?
And help them administer awards. I I'm resisting the urge to give. I don't know if it's appropriate for me to give feedback on that idea. I think yeah, I think certainly. I think my interpretation of that is that it's something that is not as specific as a specific entity lined up and being written into a proposal with a defined set of institutions, and that this is more of a service that you're after, a little bit of a build it and they will come. I don't think that is necessarily responsive to Area 2. So I'm going to answer that question again in the context of the current solicitation. I'm not sure if I'm interpreting that correctly, that would be responsive to what I guess that would be an Area 2 proposal.
Okay. No other questions are currently queued up. If anybody has any more, please type them in. While we wait for that, I'll just thank you again, Kevin, for doing this. And the recording will be posted pretty shortly after for sharing with anybody who didn't get a chance to hear it. If anybody wants to do that.
Okay.
All right, I think we're done here. So I'll just say thanks to everybody who attended. Next week's talk is going to be on the Supercomputing 17 architecture, and we're going to have two speakers, Mark Leonet from Siena and Jim Stewart from UEN. So hopefully people can attend for that, and hope everybody else has a good weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Jason.